Welcome to the 59th Annual ISNA Convention. Resilience, hope, and faith. With hardship comes ease.
MGAGE is a family of institutions that works to build political awareness, empower Muslim American communities, and bridge the gap between elected officials and their constituents. We operate out of Florida, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia, with headquarters in Washington, D.C. Please check out our website to find out more and to get involved.
Home.
Good.
Body.
God.
Her.
Good.
What does home mean to you? Home is hope. Family. We are Guidance Residential, the #1 U.S. Islamic home financing provider. Home.
Good.
Body.
God.
Her.
Domicilio.
What does home mean to you? Home is hope, dreams, security. Guidance is here to help bring you home. Achieve the dream of home ownership without compromising your faith.
IMRC, helping nearly 1 million beneficiaries each year across India in the areas of feeding, education, healthcare, water wells, orphan support, emergency relief. Please give today.
For more than 30 years, Amana Mutual Funds have provided halal investment vehicles serving the unique needs of the Muslim community. Discover how you can align your investments with your principles in a retirement, health, or education savings account, or invest for Hajj. To obtain this and other important information in a prospectus or summary prospectus, please visit amanafunds.com or call toll-free 1-888-732-6262. Please read the prospectus and consider an investment's objectives, risks, charges, and expenses carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. The Amana funds limit the securities they purchase to those consistent with Islamic principles. This limits opportunities and may affect performance.
Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind, with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. Sponsor an orphan now.
The International Institute of Islamic Thought, IIIT, is a research institution invested in advancing education in Muslim societies to meet its vision of thriving Muslim societies, where individuals achieve their fullest potential through transformative learning. Advancing education in Muslim societies, or AIMS, has the following goals: continue the legacy of the founders of IIIT, change the discourse on education in Muslim societies, provide evidence-based knowledge on advancing education. To learn more, visit IIIT.org. Connect with us on social media.
I'm Mohammed Hussein.
My name is Zulika Hussein.
We do commercial real estate development in Texas.
We at Wazoo Capital Partners urge all of you to research on the benefits of real estate syndications. We all work hard for our money, and now we need our money to work hard for us. Please visit our website and connect with us at wazoocapital.com.
Join film producers Alex Cronemer and Michael Wolf as we work to change the narrative with UPF films about Muslim compassion, contribution, heart, and humor. Your support makes this work possible.
We're here for America through thick and thin. We are neighbors helping neighbors, and together we're building stronger communities nationwide. ISNA Relief. Charity begins at home. Charity begins with you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother in Islam, Yasir Qadi, and I speak to you as the Dean of the Islamic Seminary of America. And I want to invite you to learn about the extraordinary progress of our institute by visiting our booth at ISNA, booth number 1210. And also invite you to share a free breakfast with members of our team at the Doubletree Hotel between 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. this coming Sunday, inshallah ta'ala. I pray that inshallah ta'ala you will appreciate these much needed efforts that the Islamic Seminary is doing and also be impressed at how much we've managed to achieve in so short of a time. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the 59th Annual ISNA Convention. Resilience, hope, and faith. With hardship comes ease.
Assalamu alaikum. May God's peace be with each of you. Welcome to what we're calling ISNA in person, something we've all been waiting for, I think, for too long. So please, as we go through the program today, take the materials that are being passed out so that you can join the conversation. Cards are also being passed out if you have any questions or would like to make a comment about organizations and communities doing some of this work. If we can't get to each of them, if you could put your name and email and cell phone number, we'll make sure we reach out afterwards. My name is Dilara Saeed. I'm the president of the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. And I'm honored to be part of this group of colleagues that are doing amazing work across the nation. So, Virginia Sam Rasool, a friend, shared with me recently that 500,000 elected officials are across the United States of America. They're at the federal level, the state level, and the local. Federal being our US Congress, our executive branch, et cetera, judicial branch. State being all of the 50 states that make up the Federation of the United States of America. And of course, the thousands of municipalities across this nation. So we don't have the data on Muslim elected officials, but Amian.org, EngageUSA.org, El Hibri Foundation, and other organizations are doing this work in collecting this data. If you know of other organizations, those are the cards I'd love for you to take a look at and fill out, helping us understand who else is doing this work. Let's get to what we do know about the Muslim community. Possibly 1,000 elected officials. across the United States of America. So, my brothers and sisters, we have approximately 3% of the US population that identifies as Muslim and 0.2% of US elected officials that identify as Muslim. This is a classic case of underrepresentation. And it isn't because we're so invisible or people don't know us or we don't do the right things. One of the flyers being passed out today is the American Muslim story. Take one. Muslims have been in America for 400 years. Today we are doctors, teachers, educators, engineers, IT workers, Uber drivers. We're some of the wealthiest Americans, as well as some of those most challenged. We give a great deal in philanthropy and zakat. We also give a great deal to political organizations and communities. So today's panel is going to do exactly what we said earlier. Answer the question of why, when we have so many Muslims doing amazing things across this nation, and if you look at this map, it tells you the per capita of Muslim populations across the nation. Where we are right now in Illinois is the largest per capita population, but look at the other states: Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Texas, Michigan, Florida, Delaware, California, Pennsylvania, and I will add Georgia and a few others on here as well. Key states for Muslim populations. Why is it that we are underrepresented in the political, policy, and power tables? My esteemed colleagues, at the federal and national level, we want to understand, also deepen our understanding of the different demographics of the levels of government, right? We have federal and national. U.S. Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana, right? So also represents Indiana, also represents all of us across the United States. Wael El-Zayed, a great friend, CEO of Engage, doing the work of organizational leadership across the nation for strategy, but also working locally as well. State and regionally, Senator Fadi Khadura is in Indiana, in District Senate 30. And then our organization, the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition, works across the Midwest region. And locally and municipally, which is one of the most important places where work gets done, we have Bushra Amawala. When elected, she was the youngest elected official in the United States of America to the School Board of Ed 73.5 school district. And Sajid Khan, public defender of Santa Clara County, also who's run for office recently. So we're going to talk to each of them about kind of different questions that they can help us with. So my first question is going to be 2 minutes each. They'll come up and they'll answer the question, learning from challenges and successes of the path to representation taken by other communities, and we've seen them grow: Latino, LGBTQI, Jewish, African American. We see an inside and an outside push from community leaders to get them there. All of our colleagues here represent some of those inside and outside push. What do you feel is your role or responsibility from your perspective as either an elected official, appointed official, or organization leader towards our own diverse communities having equitable representation? And we'll start with Wael, and we'll go down so you can see each of the levels of government speaking from their perspective as well.
Thank you, Dilara. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Engage is a national organization with chapters in 7 states. We focus on 3 things: getting Muslims to vote, advocate on issues that we care about, and help elect good candidates. Now, the second piece is the most difficult, because we are a very diverse community. I am Syrian American. I'm a first-generation Syrian American. I deeply care about the democracy movement, the oppression that the Syrian people have faced, and the horrible refugee situation that has emanated from it. Our Palestinian brothers and sisters, they have been dealing with oppression and occupation for over 60 years. Our Kashmiri brothers and sisters, there's the Uyghur genocide, the Rohingya genocide, our black Muslim brothers and sisters in America, and the systemic racism that they face. So how do we reconcile these issues, prioritize them, and do service to all of them? At Engage, our answer to that is by engaging and listening to those communities and centering their voices. As Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley would say, it is those who are closest to the pain who are going to be closest to the answer. And so in practice, what that means is that you have to also open up your organization, your boards, your staff, your resources to those various diverse communities. You have to also include it as part of your core agenda. So at Engage, and particularly following the killing of George Floyd and the movement of all Americans for ending police brutality against black citizens of this country, we incorporated social justice, police reform, and criminal justice reform as part of our core work. Because not only is it good for us as Muslim Americans, as black Muslim Americans, but as human beings of this society. We also made sure that we reviewed all of the issues that we work on and matched them with data-backed polling from ISPU, from Pew Research, and our own polling regarding the issues that our communities care about, whether they are domestic or foreign in nature. And so you really have to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, show it in your makeup, in the DNA of your organization. What do you look like? What are the lived experiences of your organization? And then back it up with action. And I'm very proud to say that because of this engagement, we have been proud supporters of key legislations in support of the Rohingya human rights that have been ignored for too long, of passing the Uyghur Human Rights Acts and the Forced Labor Act, which prevents U.S. companies from benefiting from slave labor by the Uyghur Muslim minority of China. And we are advocating on behalf of so many communities, but the only way to do that is if we're all doing it together and really supporting each other's issues as if it's our own. Even if we're not able to prioritize it and make it our number one issue, right? I can't expect my Kashmiri brothers and sisters to make Syria their number one issue. It's just not realistic. But can Syria and Palestine be their number 2, 3, or 4 issue? Can their issues be among my top 5 issues? Because if we do it alone, we're never gonna get there. We are not an instant gratification organization. That is not our approach. It's a long-term struggle. These are generational struggles. But if you begin by doing it through inclusivity, representation, inshallah, I do know that we are already on our way to not only better representation, but policies that reflect our interests and our values. Assalamu alaikum, and I'm looking forward to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. 2 minutes. I was pressing Dr. Saeed. I know she's busy, but ISNA, where's the microphone? No. You know, I think that it's important to have relationships and build bridges with other communities. Why? I'll never forget, in 1984, I went to San Francisco with my grandmother, who was involved in politics, to the Democratic National Convention. A guy by the name of Jesse Jackson was running for president. Who's heard of Jesse Jackson? Well, Reverend Jackson did not get the nomination, but we went back to Indiana, registering people to vote. I wasn't even old enough to vote. Phone banking. And there was a lady on that trip named Dr. Pat Payne. And fast forward, I was in high school, and we were trying to get a Black history class taught at our high school. And I remember this lady, Pat Payne, who worked as an educator. I called Pat Payne. She said, well, sweetheart, if you can get us 1,000 signatures, we'll see what we can do. My white friends helped us get the first 500, and we were able to get the rest. Fast forward, I was 17 at a mosque. I got arrested. At that time, if you were a minor, they wouldn't release you on the weekends. I was awakened after I promised I'd never get arrested. I tried to stay out of trouble. When I was at the mosque trying to get protected, I got locked up because we were being surveilled by law enforcement. I woke up, the head of the juvenile facility said, these people in the parking lot will not leave until they know that you're okay. I looked outside, I saw a sea of Muslims, I saw a sea of activists, and they gave me an early release. They dropped the charges. Fast forward, I'm helping register voters. I go to Masjid al-Fajr, where my great uncle, Imam Umar al-Khattab, was the imam. His son and daughter-in-law and grandkids are here, my cousins, they came to support. By the way, years ago as a young Muslim teenager, I would come to ISNA and watch my cousin, some of you all remember a rap group called Sons of the Crescent. He's a founding member. Anyway, I would try to register people to vote, and Yasin, you may remember this, some of the brothers, our beloved Tabliki Jumaat brothers, oh, astaghfirullah, brother Salim, that's haram, brother, no, we can't. 9/11 happened, and our community looked up, and we didn't have much support in the outside world. I know you said 2 minutes, but come on now. We didn't have much support. So we had to network, thank goodness for ISNA, thank goodness for ICNA, but we needed additional firepower in the form of CARE. We needed additional firepower in the form of impact, MAS. We needed additional firepower and stealth bombers in the form of Emerge and so many other groups. And it is because of that interfaith dialogue and coalition building, our community has been able to clear the pathway for elected officials like myself, Brother Keith Ellison, Sister Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Fade Kodora, and so many other elected officials, Sister Bushra, so many elected officials, but we're not done. What does that work look like? That coalition building, to Wael's point, yes, it means talking about Syria. Yes, it means talking about the ever-prevailing Palestinian question. Yes, it means talking about Yemen, but it also means talking about Black lives because they do matter. It means talking about roads, bridges, and infrastructure. It means showing that we care about the educational system. It means showing that we too are concerned about crime. And when we show that our concerns are localized, then we'll get support from the greater community because we show that we are a part of this beloved country we call America. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, I'm honored to be with you today. My name is Fadi Kaddoura. I'm a proud American Muslim who came to the United States as an immigrant from Palestine, raised by a poor family, went through the difficult experience of living in the United States after 9/11, where I saw Muslims' identity being questioned, Muslims' loyalty being questioned. I married my wife, who was born in Dearborn, Michigan. She's here today with my 2 daughters, and lived through the difficult time of having a family member who witnessed gun violence. She lost her brother, who was killed at their family business. Fast forward, our family went through homelessness after Hurricane Katrina. We lived in the South, and we became homeless for a while. And we had to rebuild our lives from scratch. So when I first came to the United States, I pursued a bachelor's and master's in computer science. I wanted to become the next Jeff Bezos, the good side of Jeff Bezos. But short after all of these life experiences, as a faithful Muslim, I recognized that my purpose, my mission, is much greater than just earning a paycheck. So in Houston, Texas, I went through a transformation where I pursued public administration as a profession, volunteered with nonprofit organizations to help the 1 million evacuees, moved with my family and 2 daughters to Indiana to pursue a master's in public administration and a PhD in public policy and philanthropy. I worked in different levels of state government. I worked as a city controller for the capital city, and I ran for office. I never thought about running for public office. As a matter of fact, I dislike politics because I always understood politics to be cynical, to divide people. But I reached the conclusion after 15 years of teaching and preaching within the Muslim community about that the closest to righteousness in the faith of Islam is justice. And I've seen injustice almost in every zip code and every county and every state across the United States. And I went through the question of what is my role as a Muslim to translate my values into something that can change humanity and make it a better place for every single human being. So I started inviting myself to the rooms where I was not invited. And let me say that one more time. For those who asked the question of how we can enhance representation, I started inviting myself to the rooms where I was not invited. To the places, to the places where if your name is Fadi, you're a Muslim, you're immigrant, and English is your second language. To win in Indiana, a conservative state, as a Democrat, to become the most overspent target by my opponent who spent $2 million to defeat me, with a nationally recognized name, and to be able to make it speaks volumes that our message, our values, and what we stand for is good for America. In 2020, I was told, your name is Fadi, you're a Muslim, you're an immigrant, you cannot win in Indiana. I was told, your opponent is nationally recognized, and they raised $2 million to defeat an immigrant, but I told them, Allah is on my side. And when you believe in your mission, and you believe that you're doing it for the right reasons, and you know that you want to serve those who are voiceless, those who go to sleep hungry, those who are unsheltered, to the women that struggle to raise their kids because they don't have income, to the brothers and sisters who suffer and struggle from mental health issues, to those families who do not live in safe communities where gun violence is taking effect in every community, including the Muslim community. The only option I had as a Muslim is to stand up. My name is Fadi. Yes, I'm an immigrant. English is my second language, and I'm proud to represent you as the first American Muslim in the history of Indiana to serve in the Indiana State Senate.
All right, double microphone. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Bushra Amiwala. I serve on the Board of Education of Skokie School District 73 and a half, meaning, yes, it's a half district. Therefore, coalition building is extremely important. And I think a lot of what my fellow colleagues on stage have already attested to, I would like to plus one and say, yes, I agree. So I want to take the time to share that one of my responsibilities as a Muslim elected official is to ensure I am never the only Muslim in a room or in a position of power. And no, that doesn't mean I'm on a mission to convert everyone that comes my way, although that would be cool too. However, I want to share a story of what it felt like and the earliest stage that I felt to being the only Muslim in a room. I was in preschool, bear with me, and I just learned how to read English. I could always speak English as a kid, right? I watched a lot of Arthur and Caillou growing up, and I just learned how to read the language. And we were given song lyrics, the words to a song, and expected to sing this song and harmonize with all of my classmates. And everyone could sing this song so beautifully, except for me. And mind you, the words to the song were really long, like Rudolph and reindeer, and I just couldn't do it. So I'm lip syncing, and there's a girl across from me named Carmen who also couldn't sing the words to the song. And Carmen, afterwards, I ask her, why couldn't you sing that song? And she goes, well, I'm Jewish. And I say, holy smokes, because I'm in preschool. I say, I think I am too. And Carmen goes, all right. And I say, wait, no, I'm Muslim. And she goes, oh, what's that? And I said, I don't know. Again, I was 4 or 5 years old. But the reason why I share this with you all today is I went home and told my mom, I told the whole class I'm Muslim, we're gonna sing a song for our community, right? We sang the dreidel song for Carmen. My mom goes, you told the whole class you're Muslim? Keep that on the DL. Because this happened 6 weeks after 9/11. And the reason I share this is because it's the everyday instances that remind me I'm different and what lack of representation in the classroom looked like for me. Therefore, I want to ensure no student, especially in our public school system, ever feels ostracized and unseen or unheard or unrepresented in that way. And with the support of the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition, I am so proud to have testified in front of the Illinois General Assembly to showcase the positive contributions of Muslim Americans in history. And this law passed, and now every public school in the state of Illinois has to teach the positive contributions of Muslim Americans in history. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sajid Khan, and for the last nearly 15 years, I've been in our jails, I've been in our courthouses, and I've been in our streets as a public defender in San Jose, California, fighting for the rights and dignity of our community's most vulnerable and marginalized people. And I recently ran for Santa Clara County District Attorney in a county of 2 million plus people. And albeit unsuccessfully, it was a very gratifying and meaningful experience. When I think about representation, I think we need to question the premise about representation purely for representation's sake. I think about representation from the prophetic model and think about representation from a lens of embodying our faith and manifesting our values. And how did the Prophet ﷺ do that? And how do we do that in his lineage? It's by making the lives of our neighbors better at its core. It's by fulfilling the rights and dignity of our community's most marginalized people. It's by, in turn, undoing systems of harm and injustice. When we center in those intentions, we then can represent our faith and our prophet fully and beautifully. And I've attempted to do that in my limited role as a public defender for over the last 14 plus years, attempting to center the most system-impacted people in our community. And by fighting against systems of mass incarceration, police brutality, systemic racism, and things like the school-to-prison pipeline and our carceral immigration systems that have left generational trauma on communities of color in this country and in our local neighborhoods and not made us collectively safer. So when I think about representation, and I urge you all to consider when you think about representation, what are you representing? What are you showing up for? And ultimately, again, I urge you to consider embodying or attempting to embody the prophetic model and trying to make the lives of your neighbors better. And how do we do that at the local level? We do that by holding our district attorneys accountable, who are the entities that are trusted to hold police accountable when they violate the lives and dignity of our fellow human beings, especially our black brothers and sisters. It's by holding our school board officials accountable and our local city governments accountable for their allocation of resources. Are they funding the programs and systems that actually cultivate meaningful long-term dignity and safety in our communities? Or are they perpetuating harmful systems of mass incarceration, police brutality, and systemic racism that again leave generational trauma on all of us? And so, again, when I think about representation, I urge us all to represent with those core values that our Prophet ﷺ modeled for us, and to center those most system impacted by these systems of harm. Thank you.
You heard 6 of our different perspectives, and I hope in them you see some themes running through. Representation and the work that we're doing isn't successful unless we have a faith-driven focus. That we're each doing it because we are called to do it by our Creator, and the example is set by our prophets. Representation means working towards justice and equity for everyone, our neighbors, being good allies. I don't know if the word allies was used intentionally, but I want it to be. Being good allies to everyone of every color, every race, every ethnicity, every faith, every background. And then being good partners and coalition builders with each other. I appreciated what several of our speakers said about that idea of we can't do this together, we can't do this without being together, we cannot do it alone. So, to move towards policies that are made for us, only being made with us, we work very much at both the national level, the state level, and the local level. And I wanted to ask Congressman Andre Carson to come up and talk about what can you drive at the national level that is the right space for you to be at. And then I want Bushra Amiwala to come up and tell us what can she drive at the local level, at the school board levels, that is so critical for our students, our children, our families, etc.
Well, it's hard to identify one thing. I think I would, at least in terms of my job duties, in a congressional context, I would define it in terms of my congressional duties that are outlined in the U.S. Constitution. I just supported the Inflation Reduction Act, but I sit on the Transportation Committee as well as the Intelligence Committee. But on the Transportation Committee, we just passed the most monumental infrastructure bill in America's history. And that means that we're going to see jobs created, nearly 15 million to 20 million jobs over the next decade or so. And regardless of what we're talking about, if it doesn't translate into economic development for our constituents to improve their lives, it won't resonate. Now, campaign-wise and politically, our project has been about going to homes and restaurants across our community, as we've done so since Keith and I first got to Congress. Keith is now an Attorney General, has been to motivate the Muslim community to leverage our voting bloc to bring about change. What does that look like? It means that we have to define what we want. It's not enough for elected officials to come to our iftars, say assalamu alaikum, we take a picture, and they leave. We give them money, we do fundraisers for them, But when they get into office, they support or so-called anti-Sharia legislation. They vote against our interests, but we're okay because we're happy that they took the time to show up to our masjids. That to me is unacceptable. And so as a result, we have been encouraging, as I spoke to Wael last night, who does a phenomenal job with Engage, the creation of Muslim PACs and super PACs, more Muslims running for office. Now, not everyone will run for office. It's going to take coalition building because we still have to hold people in office accountable. So my project nationally has been making sure we leverage the millions of Muslims in this country to encourage and push future administrations to have Muslims represented in their cabinet. We're seeing it with the Biden administration, but we want to see more. I think if we raise millions of dollars for a candidate, we shouldn't be satisfied. We should say, hey, we've yet to see a Muslim Surgeon General. We've yet to see a Muslim Attorney General. We've yet to see a Muslim Secretary of State. We've yet to see a Muslim Secretary of Transportation. We've yet to see a Muslim as head of the Department of Homeland Security. And maybe even the FBI, given the tumultuous history of the Bureau and J. Edgar Hoover's failed COINTELPRO. But that doesn't mean we should lose our attempt to invest in our country, but it comes at a price. And we cannot be a talking point for an elected official to demonize our community, nor can we be a talking point or an accessory to enhance the campaign of someone who is ultimately unconcerned about our issues. If we're going to support people, to support the federal budget, we want to make sure that your and my taxpayer dollars aren't being used for law enforcement agencies to continue to surveil us without having met the probable cause or reasonable suspicion test. We need to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are leveraged properly. And how do we do that? We come together as a community and we have a standard. If you're coming to Dr. Muhammad's house, these are the 3 points that we want you to address before you walk into the door. You want us to raise $30,000 for your campaign? Where do you stand as it relates to Muslim schools? Where does it stand as it relates to the Kashmiri question, the Palestinian question, the Uyghur question? Where do you stand? Any other community? That's not foreign to them. But if we are unafraid to create a standard, we will continue to feel overlooked and misused. Thank you.
So one of my favorite fun facts, and I know a lot of them, is that about 40% of your property taxes go directly to your local school district. Therefore, being fiscally responsible is imperative for us. And for me, one of my favorite additional fun facts is at the local level, change can happen almost instantly. And as someone who likes instant gratification, it's a good place for me to be. Quick examples. We had a family in our school district whose parents decided to go through a divorce. And with that, there was 2 houses that the child would be in, and the bus route had to be changed in accordance to that. Sent me an email. I sent an email to the person that does the bus route. Impact was made the next day. Love that. And then sometimes we come with things that seem very logical, self-explanatory. But when we get pushback at the local level, people go hard. Like, they make it really personal. Actually, we probably do that at the national level too. But what's interesting is some of our neighbors will come with handwritten letters. They'll come to our board meetings, and we cap our open remarks at 3 minutes, and will literally raise their voices when they're unhappy or upset with something. For example, about 20% of the students in my school district identify as Muslim, and about 25% of the students in my school district identify as Jewish. So when I wanted to propose the idea of having halal lunches in our schools, You best believe I packaged it with bringing kosher lunches too. And that's why coalition building is so important. And at the local level, it's really easy to sustain and nurture that relationship and make impact happen overnight. Yet something like that, even bringing two communities together, the pushback is very personal. It hurts a lot, but the change can be done. And now all the schools in my school district serve both halal and kosher lunches starting this year, which is so exciting. And finally, schools, we also have certain days off that are seen as what we call, we give certain days off, right, for holidays and things of that sort. So we had a lot of parents come to me and saying, we want Eid to be given off. I don't want to say anything controversial, but sometimes we have people that celebrate Eid on one day and then people that celebrate it on another. Point being, if it's hard to have one day on the calendar as this is the Eid day off that we'll give, again, to package this in a way that would make it applicable to pass in the demographic district that I represent, we wanted to make sure we gave off Yom Kippur as well. We wanted to make sure that we considered, certain days off for Holi and Diwali, and that's what it looks like. Interfaith work should be the guiding principle for all work that we do at any faith-based level to ensure we are not overlooked by other groups either. So that's some of the impact we're able to do at the school board level, and that's where a lot of your money goes. So need to make sure that we're fiscally responsible and change is happening on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
I think you heard it, right? Strategy. Strategy is critical. Many times our communities that are beginning to come into the space for political empowerment are finding that they find running for Congress, setting someone up for Congress is critical. But you saw the work that Congressman Carson talked about. You saw the community organizing that he'd been doing for a decade or more before that. You saw the experience that he brought to this. That doesn't just come because you decide to run for office. It doesn't come because you just decide to run for Congress. You see the power and the strategy of what Bushra said. So much work is done at the local level. And if we were to bring the best of our best and cover the 500,000 elected local elected officials and appointments, imagine the work that we can get done for everyone. So the next question we want to go to is to Sajid Khan, actually, and to Senator Fadi Kaddoura. We talk about running for office, we talk about politics, but you see also that the challenges we're facing is that there's such a great political divide. Our country right now is filled with hate, filled with divisions of all kinds, and filled with politics. We have a two-party system, and neither of those parties is really representing us. What do you believe is the way we as Muslims can work in this space?
Assalamu alaikum again. The question that was posed to me was about extremism within these parties. And when I reflected on my recent experience of running for Santa Clara County District Attorney as a Democrat, my reflections were less about extremism within the party and more about apathy, fear, and faux progressivism within the party, and a tendency to revert back to the status quo. And what do I mean by that? When we think about systems of mass incarceration and narratives of policing making us safer and the need for more jails and prisons, those are constructs that are deeply entrenched in our society's fabric. They are not new. They are extensions of slavery, they are extensions of the dehumanization of Black lives in this country, and they go back hundreds of years. But then we saw an opening in 2020 after the killing of George Floyd. We saw the Black Lives Matter movement more resonant than ever. We saw an outpouring in our streets, in our communities in San Jose, in Minneapolis and across the country unlike any other. And we all recognize in San Jose, for example, that for George Floyd being killed in Minnesota, there were dozens of people of color in San Jose that were also being killed by local law enforcement without any form of accountability. And so there was this national and statewide and local movement to actually manifest Black Lives Matter and to truly transform systems of policing. And that's where my campaign for district attorney was born from. I never planned on running for DA. For those of you that are familiar with the criminal legal system, public defenders and DAs are adversaries. I would have never imagined running for the other side. But there was this opening and there was this movement to try to harness the Black Lives Matter movement into true systemic change. But then just 2 years later, in 2022, Joe Biden in his State of the Union address said, we don't want to defund the police. He said, we want to fund the police. And we were right back to those deeply entrenched systems that are rooted in the dehumanization of Black lives in our country. We were right back to defining public safety by jails and prisons. We were right back to calling for more police officers in our streets as opposed to more mental health clinicians and better pay for our teachers. We were right back to the status quo. So that's what we're up against in our local municipalities, in our states, in our country. And it happened in California. Every progressive district attorney candidate lost to carceral, incumbent, mostly white DAs that have defined justice by years and months in jails and prisons, that have not held police officers accountable, that have prosecuted children as adults, and have pursued practices like the death penalty. But I don't mean to be a downer here, but this is just a recognition of what we're up against. We're up against the status quo, but we have to keep showing up. We have to keep showing up with our values, our faith, and our lived experiences. And in my experience in Santa Clara County, I did not win the DA seat, but through the run, we were able to end the use of cash bail in our courthouses. We were able to end the use of the death penalty in Santa Clara County. We stopped the building of a new jail, a $500 million jail project that was set to go up in downtown San Jose has been stopped because there is a movement. It may not have won the election, but it moved us towards where we ultimately want to go, which is to true systems transformation and undoing the status quo. So my call to all of us is to keep showing up. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. So the question is about extremism in both political parties. I think this requires that any person who runs for public office to be authentic, to know where you stand morally on the issues. We cannot combat extremism with extremism. We cannot combat hatred with hatred. We cannot combat anger with anger. Earlier this year, after almost less than 18 months on the job as a state senator, the supermajority in the Indiana General Assembly and the retired Association of State Legislators awarded me the Award of the Year for being the most civil legislator in the General Assembly. And the reason I shared that with you is to tell you I subscribe to my values, to my mission, to my purpose. Political parties are vehicles. You don't have to fully agree with the political party that you subscribe to. We are independent thinkers, and that gives us the ability to call wrong wrong when you see it, and to support what is right, even if it's your own political party. And there are great examples on both sides. Most recently, after the insurrection that took place on January 6th, we saw a few Republicans serve on that investigative committee. Liz Cheney lost her congressional seat as a Republican, but she stood in an honorable way to protect our democracy. It's one of the very and most difficult things for a person to stand against their political party, because you would be probably labeled as disloyal. But my message to you is, we combat anger and hatred and ignorance with education, with working across the aisle. When I won, I became the first Democrat in 50 years since the inception or the creation of my Senate district back in 1972. I became the first Democrat to win that district because I did receive crossover votes from the Republicans as a Democrat. People told us the message resonated with them. It was logical, it was centrist, and it truly spoke logically to their needs. When we spoke about education, about the tax system, about healthcare, about our local infrastructure, people associated and felt that the message resonated with them. Dr. King once was asked, and I think the YouTube video still exists somewhere, so you can probably Google it, but he was once asked on an interview, do you hate white racist people? And he gave one of the most amazing responses. He said, no, I hate their sins. He separated the person from their sins. So that way, he kept a space for redemption, a space to go back, a space to connect with people, a space to understand their underlying grievances so that we can work on these grievances. My commitment to you, and I ask you hopefully to do the same, do not blindly follow others. Do not just blindly follow a political party. My recent message over the last many months has been to my Republican colleagues, please cross over and vote Democrat this election cycle. Not because of following a party, not because I want you to follow a party, but one of the most precious things that made our nation one of the best on this earth, which is democracy, is currently under threat. I'll conclude by saying this. One of the most dangerous things for a society to go through is when it becomes so ambiguous to the public what is right and what is wrong. The things that we used to hold as simple truths and rights are now being questioned. Being compassionate, loving, respectful, working to serve people is now being labeled. If you're trying to afford health care to others, they might call you a communist or socialist. I don't reciprocate by calling names. I work with them to help them understand the need for that policy. So I urge you to always be thoughtful. We cannot speak from both sides of our mouth. One of the most inspiring stories to me from our faith is that one of the greatest people in the history of Islam, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, before Islam, he went to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And look who he turned into. Because we see the value in people, we see their leadership abilities, we see their intellect and what they can bring to the table. So let's appeal to the better angels of our society. Thank you.
Our prophets and our last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taught us to be the middle way, the people of the middle path, the people who have room to love everyone, but also keep it so that we're following one path. So we're asking you at a time of ISNA to contribute to masjids, to support our Muslim schools, to help build social service organizations, and we need to do all of that. And then we're asking you, okay, we've got to build civics organizations. We've got to have political representation and power. So how do we do this all? What happens right now, 2022? You will leave ISNA convention. What will be the steps you take to help us all build political power, and civic justice for every single resident in our nation? I'm going to ask Wael to speak on what Engage wants of us to do in the next few months. And then I'll speak to voting, laws, and all of the different ways we create a civic justice diaspora with the coalition.
Thank you, Delara, and I'll keep it brief. First thing you need to do is contribute to every single elected official you have here. What is happening in the community is not an accident. This has been a 15, 20-year work of many organizations here before you. Engage was founded 16 years ago. The Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition has been working at this at the state level and in the region for a number of years right now. In 2020, we launched the Million Muslim Votes campaign. Many of you have heard about it. It was promoted here. We brought Bernie Sanders to many of you. And we worked at it. We created a network of Muslim organizers through our chapters and great partners like the coalition to knock on 20,000 doors. We sent 3.5 million text messages. We called 1.5 million people. Million. And we got 1,086,000 Muslim voters to vote in 2020. But it wasn't just to do that. The Biden administration has appointed 65 Muslim Americans in its administration that are now serving in the executive branch. Many of you have heard from my good friend Rashad Hussain, who's now the ambassador at large for religious freedom. The Uyghur issue I just mentioned, the Rohingya genocide. He is the lead person for the US government working on this issue, holding China, holding the Burmese government accountable. But we're not done. This cannot be just about defeating a certain president, Donald Trump. This has to be a cultural shift in our community. ISPU just released a poll saying that the Muslim community is voting at the same level as other faith groups. This does not happen by accident. What it requires is all of us dedicating ourselves to, number one, go to millionmuslimvotes.com and check, are you registered? How is your registration status? Pledge to vote. Tell others to vote. That translates directly into representation in Congress, representation at the local level, representation in government, into your issues reflecting your interests and values. We're not done. We're just getting started. So I really appreciate you guys coming here. I thank ISNA for hosting us, Delara Sayed, my good friend, for coming up with this panel, and all the great panels here with us. Please support your Muslim candidates and allies and your Muslim American civic and political institutions. They are your organizations, and we're hiring.
On your screen, you're actually going to see each of the organizations and each of the elected officials. Please go to their website and contribute to them. So if they would please put the last slide up. So the key today that we wanted you as a takeaway is, just as we build strategy and build community around the other things that we've done as American Muslims, we are now doing that across the nation for civic justice. We are telling you to vote, but why do we vote? We vote for just laws. We vote for ethical leaders. We vote for representation for communities whose issues and voices are often invisible. And so please, this is the work we're all doing together, all of you, all of us. How many of you know which date we're going to be voting this year? Okay, November 8th, good. Most people had it. Please get your cameras out and take a photo of this screen. Please go on the websites that are on the screen to get to know each of these officials and these organizations. Please help us support a holistic approach to what we do every day, passing just laws, making sure we're at the table, voting, redistricting and census. You know, Arabs right now are counted as white in the census. That's a conflation we have to change in 2030. We make sure we have briefings with our legislators, and we make sure we're building our own capacity. So many of us there's some states that still have primaries, I believe. So if your state still has a primary in June, July, or August, Wait, that's your mom, Sajid. Okay, did I miss? So inshallah, Auntie, we will vote in every next election. Inshallah, we got it. But so many times we have amazing posters on our walls of, art, of artists, etc. What about a poster that has our American Muslim story? So if you'd like a copy of a poster size for your family, the session before us talked about identity, mental health, and wellness. Part of our challenges are coming from the stresses of being American, being Muslim, and being every other identity all at the same time. We want you to feel proud of who we are as American Muslims. And we are so proud of every single one of our great colleagues and friends and brothers and sisters up here on the stage. So thank you, and please join me in thanking them. We'll end in the way that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also ended with his Sahabas. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. As a group they said, certainly by the time man and woman will be at a loss, except those who do good and encourage one another to do good, and those who are patient with themselves and their faith, and encourage one another to be patient with themselves and their faith. The Prophet and his Sahabas always were together. Inshallah, we will be as well. Ameen. Thank you.
Welcome to the 59th Annual ISNA Convention. Resilience, hope, and faith. With hardship comes ease.